Good evening. Welcome back to PWTRELYNEWS with your host, Mosey Along. And tonight we're talking about America's infrastructure and the 50 black holes of shade. Shade just isn't relief. Shade is an infrastructure. Shade is temporary real estate. Shade is political territory. Shade is the next American shortage. And in your life, a shade can become a black hole. Places where people disappear into coolness, fight for territory, and argue over who owns the shadow. A black hole of shade actually is a spot everybody wants. A heat escape zone, relief from extreme heat. A temporary infrastructure that moves with the sun. A black hole of shade is the last cool spot in a heat wave. A contested territory. A temporary refuge, a shifting zone of comfort, a place where people cluster, argue, and negotiate. Shade becomes a scarce resource like water or electricity. Why would one want to commercialize shade? Well, think of all the possibilities. Shade market, selling shade by the minute. Heat wave economics. Demand skyrockets. Privatize infrastructure. Everything becomes a commodity. Imagine shade passes, shade zones, shade auctions, shade scalpers, shade taxes, shade fines. Shade becomes capitalism's newest frontier. The 50 black holes. Shade catalog, list of shade types. Urban shade, buildings with overhangs. Natural shade, trees and bushes. Your film or segment can catalog 50 distinct shade types, such as the shade shadow, the building overhang, the bush pocket, the parking lot silver, the dumpster lean-to, the canvas triangle, the awning refuge, the car shadow mirage, the fence line slice, the umbrella eclipse. Each one is a black hole, a place people fight to occupy. And then there's always the shade wars, shade conflict, people competing for a shadow. Heat wave behavior, territorial instincts, public space etiquette, shade disputes. You can also have families arguing over a tree, who gets the most shade and who gets the least according to age, height, weight. Strangers inching into each other's shade. People dragging chairs into moving shadows. Umbrellas stealing shade from neighbors. Canvas tents collapsing in the wind. Shade inspectors using citations. Shade becomes social welfare. The infrastructure failure. Shade planning. Cities didn't plan for heat. Climate pressure. Heat outpaces design. Public health. Shade prevents heat deaths. And cities realize shade is essential. Shade is scarce. Shade is temporary. Shade is unpredictable. Shade must be engineered, and because it's part of America's failing infrastructure portfolio, the shade film outlined a climate satire about humor plus realism. The war of the shades. Which one is going to gain the king shade as versus the queen shade? So instead of having the war of thrones, we have the war of shades. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. And remember, you need to be quick on your feet, stake out your shade, make your claim, and file it somewhere so you can keep going back to that one spot of shade without having to share it with your siblings.